On June 7th, 1992, three women, Cheryl Levitt, her daughter Suzanne Susie Streeter, and Susie's friend Stacy McCall, vanished from Cheryl's home in Springfield, Missouri, leaving a small town forever haunted by their absence. Stacy and Susie, both recent graduates from Kickapoo High School, were last seen leaving a graduation party at 2 a.m. They were headed to Cheryl's house where Susie lived with her mother, and they had plans to visit the Branson Water Park Whitewater the next day to celebrate their graduation. But the two newly minted high school grads never made it to the water park, for they inexplicably vanished without a trace, along with Cheryl. On the morning of June 7th, around 9 a.m., Susie and Stacy's friend, Janelle Kirby, along with her boyfriend, Mike Henson, visited Cheryl's house after Susie and Stacy failed to show up at her home, where they'd all planned to meet before leaving for the water park. Upon arriving, Janelle found the home's front door unlocked, and upon entering, she found no sign of Stacy, Susie, or Cheryl. Each of the women's cars were parked outside, suggesting Susie and Stacy had made it to the house before disappearing. Janelle reported to police that the glass lampshade on the porch light was shattered, though the light bulb itself was intact. Mike innocently helped her sweep the broken glass off the porch, which police later determined may have destroyed potential evidence. Inside the house, Janelle found Cheryl and Susie's dog, a Yorkshire Terrier named Cinnamon, who appeared agitated and most likely was the only witness to the women's disappearance. While inside, Janelle also answered a strange and disturbing call from an unidentified male who made sexual innuendos. She hung up and immediately received another call of a sexual nature, again hanging up the phone. The phone calls were jarring, but she remembered Susie complaining about prank calls at the residence since moving in. According to Springfield Police Department's David Asher, Janelle described the caller as sounding like a teenager. Several hours later, Stacy's mother, Janice, also visited the house as her daughter failed to answer her calls. Janice had friends who knew employees of Whitewater, and she became panicked after they confirmed Susie and Stacy had not been seen there. Inside the residence, Janice noticed all three women's purses were sitting on the floor of Susie's bedroom, and also saw her daughter's clothing neatly folded from the night before in the bedroom as well, the only clothes Stacy had possession of that night. Cheryl and Susie's cigarettes were left inside the house, which was considered unusual by Cheryl's friends and family, who described her as a chain smoker. An unfinished can of Coke was also found next to Susie's pack of cigarettes. The lights were off in Susie's room, and her television was showing static, suggesting the women had watched a movie that night but never turned off the television after it was finished. Janice frantically called police from the home's telephone to report the three women missing. After placing the call while checking the phone's answering machine, she listened to a strange message, but it was inadvertently erased, as was common for most voicemails in the 90s after being played once. Police were very interested in the call and believed it may have contained a clue. They also did not believe it was connected to the prank calls Janelle received. Stacy's parents contacted police more than 16 hours after the women were last seen, and other worried friends and family called and visited the house the following day. Police later estimated that the crime scene had been corrupted by about 18 people who visited Cheryl's house. Upon the officers' arrival, the scene showed no signs of a struggle, except for the shattered porch light. Police also noted Cheryl's bed had looked slept in. After assessing the situation and suspecting foul play, the police secured the scene and began to gather information. The case gained widespread attention, with flyers and news reports describing the women. The next day, a lead emerged about a green van with a girl who looked like Susie driving it. The police used all their resources to investigate, including hypnotizing a witness to remember the license plate number. However, the number did not match any vehicle in the national database. Suspects began to emerge based on the women's past, specifically Susie's ex-boyfriends. The green van became a significant part of the case, and the police even used a look-alike van to jog people's memories. Despite these leads, the identity of the perpetrator remained elusive. Police suspected Dustin Rekla, an ex-boyfriend of Susie, due to his motive and opportunity, as he had a history of grave robbery and was in the area at the time of the women's disappearance. He broke into a Springfield mausoleum a few months before the women vanished and stole $30 worth of gold fillings from a skull. Police looked at Dustin because Susie had given investigators a statement about the mausoleum break-in and was rumored to be a probable witness against Dustin in court. Dustin was questioned and took a lie detector test, which he passed, leading to his release as a suspect. Mike Kovacs, another ex-boyfriend, was also a person of interest due to Susie's restraining order against him. The order alleged physical violence and harassment, but Mike denied these claims. Despite this, Susie's co-workers reported that she was afraid of Mike and needed escorting to her car after work. The restraining order expired before Susie and Cheryl went missing, 7 months after the hearing date. Mike, who initially claimed to be alone during the time of the disappearances, was cleared as a suspect after passing a polygraph test. The police then focused their attention on Susie's brother, Bart. Bart, who had a volatile relationship with his family, claimed to have been passed out drunk during the time of the disappearances, and also passed a polygraph test. There were several tips that came in regarding the case, including a letter found in a newspaper rack with a drawing of an apartment complex and the words, "Use ruse of gas man checking for leak." Police searched this complex but found nothing. Another tip came from neighbors who reported seeing a transient man with long hair and a long beard hanging around Susie and Cheryl's home in the days leading up to their disappearance. A waitress also reported seeing the girls at a steakhouse between 1 and 3 a.m. on the night they went missing, which added confusion to the timeline of their disappearance. The case gained attention from America's Most Wanted. A credible tip was received, but the call was disconnected before the police could make contact with the caller. In 1993, the police publicly suspected that a serial killer could be involved and identified 2 suspects with no prior connection to the victims. The first suspect was Gerald Carnahan, a businessman with a history of violence, including the 1985 murder of Jackie Johns. The second suspect was Steve Garrison, a member of a motorcycle gang who claimed to have information about the crime while in jail. In 1997, Robert Craig Cox, imprisoned in Texas as a convicted kidnapper and robber, and the suspect in a Florida murder, told journalists that he knew the 3 women had been murdered and buried, and claimed their bodies would never be recovered. In 1992, Cox had been living in Springfield, and when interviewed then, he told investigators that he was with his girlfriend at church the morning after the women disappeared, which she corroborated. However, she later recanted her statement and said that Cox had asked her to say that. Cox also stated that he was at the home of his parents the night of the disappearance, and they confirmed that alibi. Authorities were uncertain if Cox was involved in the case or if he was seeking recognition for the alleged murders by issuing false statements. Cox stated to authorities and journalists he would disclose what happened to the 3 women after his mother died. To this day, the case of the Springfield Three remains unsolved. In 2021, journalist Anne Roderick Jones, who has personal ties to the case, launched the Springfield Three, a small-town disappearance podcast, which I encourage you to check out. Hopefully one day the missing women's families can get some closure. Please keep them in your thoughts as they continue to seek answers. Thanks for listening, guys. Stay safe out there. And remember, don't get scared out of sorts.